chef, entrepreneur, CEO, founder, boss, Ashley Rouse.
Hey, everybody. I like that intro.
I try.
I need to record that and play that over and over again. That was good.
I try to go for like a really strong introduction.
That was nice.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just start with, where does your story start? And, how did you get introduced to cooking?
Okay, so first I'll just tell you a little bit about who I am, what I do. I am a jam maker. I'm the owner of Trade Street Jam Company. We do small batch, low sugar jams for cooking, cocktails, baking. You can really do anything with them. And we're a little bit different than like your traditional like Smuckers and things like that. We're a much cleaner product. If Smuckers last in your fridge for like 6 months, that's super weird, right? After you open it. Ours doesn't have preservatives, doesn't have additives or ingredients you can't pronounce. And then the other piece of it is we spend a lot of time trying to educate our consumer about what you can do with our products. So of course it's great on toast. But you can put it on chicken, you can make a cocktail with it. You can really just do all these fun culinary applications. So kind of bringing out like the home chef in our customers. So that's what my business is. Went to culinary school in Charlotte, North Carolina, Johnson & Wales, did their 4-year program. No, I didn't always know I wanted to cook, but I think in high school nobody knows what they want to do. And so for me, I watched a lot of Food Network. I love to cook. And when I found out that that was like a career path you could do, I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Like, I guess I'll go to culinary school. Everybody thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so it kind of pumped me up. Like anyone I told, they were like, you're going to culinary school? Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. So I was like, all right, this is cool. So I went to culinary school. I worked in the restaurant industry for about 15 years now. Worked in tons of restaurants, hotels. So really got all my experience from there. And kind of was just doing jam as like a passion project and giving it away to like friends and family for holidays, stuff like that. And then moved to Brooklyn, got super inspired. I've been there for about 6 years now, so this was about 6 years ago. Just all the culture and art and food. I was just like, I should start selling this. So started doing that, kind of popped off a little bit from there, and so that's where I'm at today.
So when you were in culinary school, is this when you started to formulate the idea of the jam company?
No, I would love to say that it was like that organized. Like I know a lot of people who are like, I spent years like building a business plan and like built up this like idea. It was not like that. And if you are, you don't have to do that to create a business. And I think people have told me that over time, and it's kind of deterred me. Or, I didn't start with a business plan. I kind of just started with an idea. Now, if you start the other way, you might have more success. It's more calculated. But no, I didn't. Actually, at the time when I was in college, I actually had another business. It was called Urban Mondays. It was a custom alterations business. And so people would send us their clothing, like an old pair of jeans or something, or people would buy new jeans and we would like trick them out. We would turn them into joggers. We would hem them. Like we would do all this. We'd sew patches on stuff. I sewed for like 8 years when I was younger. So it was a really cool experience. Like I think my husband's always like, we were ahead of our time, because now we see people doing it and we get so mad. Like we go to the stores and there's like patches sewn on, or like if you've ever seen a denim jacket with sweater sleeves, right? We'll see that at like Urban Outfitters. I was making that like 10 years ago. So I'm just like, we were ahead of our time, but I think the passion wasn't there. Like we loved it, but my background wasn't in retail. And so I think there was always something in me that was like, that's not what I knew. Like I know food, and my husband's like, well, we should get a job at a retail store so we can understand clothing. And I was like, like work at Macy's or something. I don't like refold clothes. Oh my God. When you fold it and then they come and unfold it and then you have to go back and refold it. But that's how you get experience in things, right?
Sure.
And I just was like, I don't want to do that. So we kind of realized that our passion wasn't there. But starting that other business and doing that I did that for like 5 years. That really helped me so much in what I do. Like there's so many mistakes I made then that I didn't have to make now, which was really, really helpful. I still make a shit ton of mistakes, but that just like kind of laid the foundation. So yeah.
Did you have the entrepreneurial spirit from the beginning, or is it something you kind of picked up while growing up?
It's hard to say, because I don't think I ever like looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, you're an entrepreneur. Like, I don't think it was like that. I just think I've always thought there was something more, right? Like I always worked in, I worked in really fancy hotels. I worked in the Westin and the Ritz-Carlton in their kitchens and like worked my way up. And it was fun, but I was always just like, I don't know, like what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's this feeling like, okay, I guess I'll work my way up to like what, executive chef, and like, and then what do I do? So I think there's always something that was like, I want to do something different. I didn't know what that was, but I was like, I could do something more fun, different. I also don't love listening to people and like doing what they want me to do all day. You know what I mean? Especially when they're not good people. I know you guys have worked for like shit. Am I allowed to curse?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's such a part of me.
Yeah, no, this is...
Especially when you work for like shitty bosses, like it really can change your whole day. Like there was literally, I can't make this up. I've had 2 separate jobs I'll never forget where I would cry and pray in the car before I literally like drive into the parking spot, park my car, and just boo-hoo cry. Like fuck this. I don't want to go in here. And it was changing my whole demeanor. Like I was being a bitch every day. Like I was awful, and that's not who I am. And it was because my bosses were awful. They didn't know how to manage, and that's fine. Not everyone knows, but they weren't, they wouldn't admit that. It was just terrible. And so I think when you have that, I was just like, why? Like why wouldn't I just want to go do something for myself and be my own boss? Why would I want to work for somebody that's like crap? If I want to work for somebody that doesn't know how to manage, I'll work for myself. At the time, that's what I was thinking. Like we have the equal experience. Like, so yeah.
What made you do a jam company as opposed to opening like a restaurant and working in your own space?
So like people always were like, you're gonna open a restaurant, right? Especially my non-culinary like friends. Oh, you're gonna open a restaurant? I'm like, no, stop asking me about that. When you like go through, I took a ton of classes and worked in restaurants and really understood what it takes to run a restaurant. That wasn't for me. I think I've seen such crazy things and heard such crazy stories. And I mean, I've seen like porters, like dishwashers, take steaks and throw them in the trash and then pull their car around in the evening and take them out of the trash and like take them home, like $1,000 of inventory. And I've just seen like so many things you have to keep your eye on, and alcohol. I've seen bartenders give me free alcohol, like as a cook in the kitchen. I'm like drinking as I'm like cleaning, but they're like giving away, and I'm just like, this is also awful. And so just understanding all the things that go, not to deter anyone, but to each his own. For me, I just didn't want to open a restaurant. And I also think when you you got to pay rent, and New York City is a whole nother beast, but even in North Carolina, like paying rent to a place in the restaurant industry, what has the highest turnover of like any industry ever.
Yeah, I think so.
And just the restaurant itself, they close every single day. And then restaurant staff, there's high turnover. I just didn't have a desire to open a restaurant. But I also, one thing, my mom like kind of changed my life, because at one point I was like, I can't work in restaurants anymore. I was like physically exhausted. And my mom gave me this book, and it was like 100 things to do in the culinary industry or something like that. And it just totally like something clicked, because I had no idea you could do all these things. Like I thought like you're a chef, you cook, you're a chef, you work in a restaurant. But it was like about food blogging, and it was about like food journalism, and just all these different like outlets you could go into. And I think for me, I was like, oh, okay, because I was getting to a point where I was like, did I waste my mom's money on this degree? Like I was
man.
I love food. I love to eat. I literally love nothing more than food. But I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Like it's so exhausting. And so that kind of just was like rebooted me to like think. It didn't give me the answer, but it kind of just got me like energized to look into some other things.
Yeah, I think people don't really understand. Like I think the mental toll of cooking professionally takes on you, especially when you're, particularly when you in a toxic environment where perhaps your manager is not quite equipped with the tools necessary to talk to you, talk to employees, kind of handle situations in a professional manner where people are showing up to work, and it's almost like a doomsday scenario where it's like I'm stuck. I'm maybe like you're financially stuck. I need this job, but this job is like killing me emotionally to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yeah. And I don't think, so I was in a position like that. And I don't think I was like, okay, I'm going to start a business to get out of it. It doesn't mean you can't, but starting a business is such a long game.
Sure.
It's such a long game. And so I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend to somebody like, oh, you hate your job, like start a business. It doesn't mean you can't, but I just think you have to be in it for other reasons when you start a business, you know? Like if you're doing it to run away from something else, I think you're gonna be disappointed because it takes so much time. So for me, I had to get happy first in my career, and I did that through God, yes, Lord, because so I was working in the kitchen. I was super exhausted. I literally, what did it for me is I was working at the Ritz-Carlton in Charlotte, and they have this thing called CIAA. It's like this big event. Everybody comes out. It's like this huge, huge thing, right? And so I think I was scheduled from like 10 a.m. to like midnight that day or something. And I was like, I was used to working long days, but I was like, really?
10 a.m. to midnight?
Yeah. And I was like, really? But I was like, all right, this is what we do. So I was already bummed about it, but I was like, fine, do it. And I think at 1 a.m., maybe 1:30, everyone's still like grinding. And I'm like, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. Do you know what I mean? And so I straight up left. Like I didn't like go to the boss and say like, I'm getting out of here. Like why? My schedule says 1. So I left, right? I didn't say anything. I don't care. And I was just so exhausted, right? And people were like giving me shit about it. They were like, you're just gonna go? Are you serious? Yes. Look at my schedule. It's not like I left in the middle of the day. So anyways, I get home and my like feet were hurting so bad. And so I like took off my pants and both of my ankles were the size of softballs. And I like called it was my boyfriend at the time, but my husband, I called him over and I was like, look at this. And he was like, oh no. He was like, that's not good. So he took me to the hospital and I had stress fractures in both ankles, which were like minor breaks. And you see people wearing those boots around where like they're like, you need a boot on both feet. They're like, we're not gonna make you wear a boot around both, but we'll put on the worst one. But you can't work for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I think for me, I was like, thank God. I was so excited for this injury. I mean, have you guys ever been there? Like, I was just like, God works in weird ways, but like.
That was literally a breaking point.
Right? I was so pumped about not going back to that place for 6 weeks. And like people were texting me like the boss is like super mad at you about like just leaving and all this. And I was like, you know what? Like I just told you my ankles are broken, both of them.
And a photo of my feet.
And like they're like worried about I did. And they're like, well, when are you coming back? You just left, like all that. And I was like, that energy, oh my God,
Are you okay?
I was too young to put that into words. Cause like now I'll be like, you're draining my energy and I'm done with it. But like then I was just like, why are they doing this? Like I was like, I was too young to really be stronger about it. But I knew I was so happy and I was like, I'm not going back. And I never went back there. But I think like, it was just a really turning point where I knew that I had to get out of that role. And so actually a friend of mine told me, if you guys have heard of Compass Group.
Sure.
A friend of, they're a giant, right? Compass Group saved my life. Yeah. Compass Group saved my life.
They run Johnson & Wales.
Yeah. They're a giant. Okay, great.
Yay.
Yeah, which campus?
North Miami.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, you said Miami, yeah.
Hey, go Wildcats.
Yeah, right. So they saved my life. Actually, the position I got after that, I hated. Which is funny. I hated it more than I hated the position at the Ritz. So a friend of mine that worked at the Ritz with me, he worked like the overnight shift. He's like, look, I hate it here too. He's like, I just got a management job at Compass. He's like, they'll make you a manager so you get more money and you'll get an office. Like you can be, you can run the kitchen. I was like, great, more money, like manager. I've been doing this, I can manage. So I applied, I got a position at a hospital, like running their kitchen. And I was the executive chef, that was the title, right? So I was like, great, like this. I was way over my head. Like I ran everything. I had to do everything, just inventory, the P&L sheets. I mean, I was just doing so many things that I've never done. But that's not what the problem was. Like I'm a smart girl. I can figure things out. It was the staff who like bullied me and abused me. It was so bad. Because it was people that had worked in this hospital it was mainly older staff. So a lot of them were like 50, 60 years old. So they were like, who is she? I was like 23 or 24, something like that. But they had been there for years and years. They were making like $9.50 an hour. And it was a toxic environment. So every single thing I did, they were just like, really? You're supposed to be this famous, like this big chef from the Ritz. Like to my face, they would say that. Wow. Like if I would cook something, they'd be like, that's all you got? Like, and I was just like, are these people serious? Like they were so nasty to me. Even the boss was nasty. I had a few staff members one girl cussed me out one day. when the boss wasn't there. Flat out, because I caught her on the phone in the bathroom or something, and I was looking for her. There was customers in line, and she wasn't at the cash register, and I went to the bathroom, she was on the phone. So I was like, girl, look, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, right? So I went and got her manager, who's the front of the house manager, because I let her deal with it. I was like, that's your staff. Can you grab her? She came out. She was like, who the F do you think you are? Like, cussing me out in front of customers. I've never had that happen ever. I was mortified. I didn't know what to do. You know, if we were on the street, I probably would have fought her. Like, we would have got, no, for real. The way she was in my face, like, you have nothing else you can do at that point but be like, yo, back up. Like, but I was trying to be this manager, right, that I had never been before. Anyways, the boss came back the next day, and I went through what happened to him, and he was just like, well, what did you do to provoke her? And I just, like, I'll never, ever forget that, because I was just like, I was so taken aback. Like, how dare you? I can't even. I'm mad still. But I am. I guess I haven't let it go.
A week later, I'm still upset.
This was I don't know, this is 2012 or something. I don't know. But it was forever ago, it feels like. But anyway, so that was my role after the Ritz-Carlton. And I hated that. And so I looked at the front of the house manager, who was just always looking cute and prancing around and, counting the money. And I was like, no offense if you guys are front of the house. I know you guys, I know you guys do more. I know you do more because I moved to the front of the house, and if you're on your game, you're doing way more. You're managing the staff, all the staff. But that's what it looked like at the time, and I was like, I gotta move to the front of the house. I was like, if she can do it, why can't I? So I had her teach me how to count money on the side, had her like teach me. Every day I was like, what are you doing now? She's like, oh, I got to do this. Okay, show me how to do it. And so I was smart enough to gain those skills behind the scenes. And I was like, even if I don't become front of the house manager here, I'm going to do it somewhere. And so around that time, my husband called me, and we were thinking about maybe moving to Chicago. He wanted to move there, and I'm from there. So I was like, that would be great. And so we were thinking about maybe moving out of Charlotte. We had been there for like 8 years. And he called me, and he's like, I got a job, babe. And I was like, so exciting. Like, where is it? And he's like, it's in Connecticut. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
And he was like, we're moving to Connecticut. And I was like, I didn't hear you. So I just remember closing my office door and crying. Because I was like, what is in Connecticut? I think I lived in New England when I was younger, like really, really little. But I was like, what's in Connecticut? And I called my mom, and she's like, baby, it's right by New York City. She's like, you'll do great there. My mom makes everything better. So I'm like, oh, it's by New York? She's like, yeah. So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, it's an hour on the train from New York City. So I'm like, screw it, I can't be here anymore. So I went on Compass's website and looked for front of the house manager positions, and I found something like right in Connecticut and Stamford. And so I applied, and I remember telling my boss, I was like, my husband got this job. I'm probably going to be leaving soon, like in the next month or something. I'm applying for jobs. And I told him, and he goes, oh, in New York? He's like, I used to work there. He's like, you're not going to make it out there. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's really competitive in New York City. He's like, I'm just telling you now so you're not disappointed. You're not going to make it.
Wow. It seems like the beginning story of your career is largely a story of institutional toxicity.
Yeah.
Where you're thrown into a structure that's unsustainable. And it's almost like we're just going to keep throwing wolves into the den, and they don't know what's happening. And we're giving them this position, we're giving them this role, probably something they've aspired to.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep throwing them in the den, and then when they get in, they find out what it really is. And they find out that perhaps you have people here that have been here so long that they're part of this institutional toxicity. But at that point, you can't, it's like trying to, it's like on a ship, you're trying to steer it, you're halfway, and you can't do a hard turn.
Yeah.
I can't change this institution on my own. It kind of exists in a space where it's almost,
it's just deeper.
Yeah,
it runs
it's just
deeper.
deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do anything about it.
So you got to jump off the ship.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Seems like what you did.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think I don't think I was smart enough to really just I think I just got thrown into a lot of this stuff, and I just knew I can't be in this negative space. It was making me negative. It was really, I was crying every day. I've almost walked out one day and just flat out quit, and I have such a strong work ethic. I've never quit any job. I've never got fired. I've always been a top performer. So for me to I was like, I'm walking out, just leaving. So I had to go outside, and I cried in the car. It was just such an emotional like year. I worked there for about a year, but it was so emotional, and I thought it was everything I wanted by leaving the kitchen because I had an office, so I could sit for once. Like if you guys work in kitchen, you know you never sit all day, and so I could sit and I could like be in charge a little bit and like tell people what to do. I thought it would be great, and it wasn't. So, it put me on the right path. You know, I applied for the job in Connecticut, and lo and behold, I think I had heard back from them, and they were like, oh, we'd love to like have you interview, but we're not sure what day. And I didn't really know when I was going to be able to come to Connecticut from North Carolina. And so we came out here for one weekend to look for apartments. And I was like, I'll just bring something in case so I like email them, let them know I'm in town, but like I didn't hear anything. And like the last day, like hours before we left, they were like, we'd love to meet you. And so I went in there, and they were super stoic and serious. And I was just like, I don't know how to be a front of the house manager, really. You know, I'm faking this right now till I make it. But I was like, I'm strong, and I have a good resume of working in kitchens, and you know, I'm great with customers. And so I was like, how hard can it be? Anyways, I didn't know if I made it or not. And then funny thing, I found out like a year later, once I was working there, for my boss, who's super cool, one of the best bosses I've ever had, which was God, because that came after that awful job. But we ended up talking about when I got the job, and he said something about, I was like, it took forever to hear from you guys. I didn't know if I was going to get it. He was like, that wasn't us. He was like, that was the recruiter. He's like, the moment you walked in here, we knew you had this job. He was like, the way you carried yourself and the first few words you said to us, they were like, we knew we were going to hire you. It was the recruiter that took forever. And I'll never, ever forget that, because that boss that said I wouldn't make it out here. And these guys, from the moment they saw me, they knew that I could do the job. And it was the best job I ever had. The staff was great. They were respectful. It was an amazing job in the front of the house, and that was my intro to being a front of the house manager. So it was really awesome.
So jumping off from that point and kind of reinvesting your time back into your real passion, the jam business, and talking about when you're in Connecticut, were you still working on it there?
Yeah, so when I was in Connecticut, I was still doing the Urban Mondays, the clothing thing. So I had started that in North Carolina in college, and then when we moved to Connecticut, I was still doing it. Kind of had brought my husband onto it because it was my thing, but he was into it. So we were doing that for probably 2 years while I was working in Connecticut. So the whole time I was working there, really.
Okay.
And I think that around that time I started making some jams because I saw all these craft markets and stuff out here. And so I was doing jams still on the side just to like do something. And I started selling them on like Etsy, and it was fun. And then I think got to a point where I was like, oh, I wish I could like make this a business, like start selling this online or whatever. And I read something from another entrepreneur. It was like the best advice ever. It was like, one of the worst things I've ever done was trying to start 2 businesses at once. And I felt like he was talking to me, because I was like, man, like, there's no way I would be able to go to work every day, come home, sew clothes, and like market that business, and then like also make jam in the kitchen. And so I think at that point I was like, I have to choose. And it was really hard because I had been doing the clothing thing for like 5 years. But I was like, that's not going anywhere. That's not where our passion is. So we just gave it up, shut the business down, and I started doing jams, started selling it at these little craft markets and things like that. So that was kind of the transition from one to the other.
How was it like working with your husband?
I mean, my husband's amazing. He's so much better than me. He's an Aquarius. He's just like the calmest person. He's so slow to anger. Like, he's amazing. I'm awful. I'm like, I mean, that's real. I'm like snappy. I mean, I'm better now in my older age. Every year I get better. I'm more patient, and you know, we all get better with age, right? But it's fine when I can control myself. He's great. Like, he has meetings. We have meetings, a standing meeting every week, which is awesome. He's in marketing, so he just has so much business knowledge to impart on what I do. So he's amazing. I have to work on not getting defensive. Creatives can be super defensive about their work. If you've ever like done anything creative, drawn something, built something, and someone's like, it's all right, or like, I don't get it. You're like, what don't you get? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll like make a jam, and it's like black pepper strawberry, and he's like, I don't taste pepper. I'm like, there's so much pepper in there. Like, I put so, and he's like, I'm just saying I don't taste it. Like, you know, and so I've learned over the years to be better. But our union goes way deeper than a business. You know, we met in college. We've been together for like 11 years, so and married for 2 years now. But our union runs deeper, and we're dedicated and smart enough to understand that like nothing else matters in our marriage but us in our marriage. So, you know, when we argue over the business, like we both have to just be like, wait a minute, like, did we just have an argument about, like, we used to argue about the clothing business all the time. And it's like, did we just argue about zippers for 45 minutes? Like, but it's, you know,
Yeah.
we're a unit, so it's good.
I'll say, particularly when you're talking about getting to jams, and you have like a unique spin on it. It's like it's not just a breakfast thing. Was that when you were kind of doing it from the beginning? Was that part of the initial concept? Is this is going to be a multi-use product, not just a breakfast staple?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anything you build, like if it's not different, like,
How's it going to stand out?
yeah, why are you doing? I mean, honestly, you're wasting your time. Like, doesn't mean you can't be successful. Like, you know, Uber came out, and there's plenty of other Uber companies that do the same thing and they're successful. So doesn't mean you can't be, but especially for like the food industry, you know, if you're gonna come out with a candy bar, like great, but like
out Snickers.
how are you gonna out Snickers? That's exactly right. And so for me, it was like I love making jam, and I always loved making funky flavors. So that was already there because I was like, strawberry's boring, but like if I can do strawberry habanero, something like more interesting, I'll do that. But then yeah, I think people, being a culinary person, like people eat more than toast, you know, and like we like to be super creative with what we're doing. And so if I can make a pan sauce with it and put it over roasted meat, or if I can make a really cool craft cocktail or something like that, I think that appealed to me. And so I was like, I think that would appeal to my customer. I got lucky in a lot of places because I didn't calculate it out the way you should, right? So like I said, if you build a business, you should be like, what does the market need, right? Like that's what you should look at first. Like what does the market need? And then how does that align with what I want to do? And then like, who's my demographic and what are they looking for? I totally did it backwards. I was like, I want to make jam and the world needs jam and they need funky flavors and they need to put it in cocktails, right?
They still know it yet.
Yeah, they just don't know yet. So I kind of got lucky in the sense that there was not a ton of jams, not nobody, but like not a ton of jams making these funny, like funky, you know, eclectic flavors. And there wasn't a lot of knowledge about what you can do with jam. So I would like Google it and there'd be articles from like Bon Appetit and it'd be like, why you need jam in your cocktails. And I was like, wow, if they're writing this, that means someone's doing it, but the people don't know. And so when we started doing these craft fairs, like people would be like, cocktails, pan sauce. And so I was like, oh, people really don't know. Like when you're in culinary, sometimes you know how to cook and you think everyone knows how to cook, and you know what I mean? The simplest things you think are, you know.
Everybody knows what stracciatella is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, all these little simple things that you think is common knowledge. So I think for that, I kind of got lucky in that sense, but.
When was your kind of your breakthrough moment where you kind of decided, I'm not going to do the full-time job anymore. I'm going to fully invest in the business, in myself. I'm going to fully invest in myself.
Yeah. I got to tell you, it wasn't like something that came easy. It wasn't like the smoothest. Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I quit my job and I started this business. And it just was so intimidating. Like, I'm like, but how? And like, you know, they'd be like, oh, well, I just did it. And I'm like, but how do you pay rent? And they're like, you got to grind. Like, what? And so, you know, side note, for me, I share so much information with everybody. Like, if you guys follow me on Instagram, my stories every day, I literally posted my bank account last week because it was like, it was negative $300. And I was like, I posted it, like, y'all need to see, like, you know, because people say, oh, you make it look glamorous every day. You, like, go around the city and look cute and speak at events. Like, sure, that's fun, but, like, I also have no money. And so, like, you know, I just try to, like, get everybody to understand the full picture. And so for all my friends that are, like, entrepreneurs, they were like, oh, you just grind. And I was like, no, my rent is $3,000. How do you pay the rent? Like, how much of your lip balm are you selling to pay the rent? Like, help me. Like, be specific. Give me the information. And they wouldn't. They were just like, oh, just hustle, work hard. And so I thought it was impossible. I was like, they're not even telling me what to do. I don't even know how I can do this. And I think, but in the back of my head, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could just do jam all day? Like, but I couldn't see how I was going to do that. And my husband was a really strong force in that. He is a small business consultant on the side, and he has this like little program called Simplifying the Business, and it literally breaks down your business in just simple, easy ways that you may not have looked at before. And so I literally was like, I want to quit my job. And he's like, all right, that's the problem. So we put it at the top, and we just like wrote it down. We broke it down. This is how much money you need to survive, to pay your rent, to pay your bills, your portion of everything. That means you got to make this much. That means you got to sell this much jam. And so it was, okay. Then I was like, oh, I have to sell 200 jars a month. Okay. So that means 50 jars a week. Okay. So if I do one event a week and I sell 50 jars, I can pay the rent. Like, it was really, it broke it down to these like tangible pieces of information. And so I think that was kind of the first turning point where I was like, oh, I could probably do this. Like, I could actually do this. Now I know what I need to do. And so for any of you guys, if you're in that stage, like, break it down on paper. Like, don't, even if you know in your head, like, I know I need this much, I need $1,500 a month, and that means I gotta, like, no, you don't know. Put it down on paper and break it out, because it's just something about seeing it, you know, and maybe it's that's just the way I learned, but like seeing it on a spreadsheet and like broken out, I was really like, oh, this can happen. And I think that's what really, that was the first piece. I didn't quit the next day, but I mean, that made me think, okay, so now what do I have to do to quit? And so we kind of tried to say, okay, you know, let me line up some events and start figuring out how much I can save and do that and put some numbers on a spreadsheet. But I was terrified. I mean, it started like, you ever get an idea in your head and you can't, like, it started plaguing me. Like, all I was thinking about was like, when I went to work was like, I want to quit. Like, how much jam, like all the time. And so I knew it was something that was like on my heart. But it was just something I kept praying on. And I actually think what really did it was I went to this, long story short, I had to speak at an event for my friend. He wanted me to speak to this on this panel, and I didn't want to do it. I don't like speaking.
You could have fooled me.
No, thank you. Thank you. I hear that often, so I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it. You know, I'll roll with that. But I usually don't like speaking, especially to like a larger group. So I was dreading speaking at this panel, and it was one of the first events I've ever like spoken at. So I was super nervous, and I didn't want to do it, but he's my friend. I tried to get out of it, and I was like, I got to do it. So I was like, we did the panel. It ended up being good. And in the middle of it, this guy in the audience, like, interrupted, like was like waving his hand, and like while we were speaking, and so we were like, all right. And so like the moderator was like, go ahead, like you clearly have something that you need to say. And so the guy just went on this like tangent about it was kind of like spiritual, but it was like, you know, if you're following your purpose, you know, there's no room for fear. You won't have fear in your heart because you'll be following your path and what you're meant to do. And it was kind of this whole little tangent. But whatever it was at that moment, it spoke to everyone. Like, the room was silent. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have fear. And so we just really like, and it did it for me. Like, I was just like, when he was done, we were like, well, okay, like, we have nothing else to talk about. Like, it was such a powerful thing he said. And so that night in the car, I was like, man, like, if I'm walking in my purpose, I shouldn't have this like fear. And for the first time in months, I was thinking about quitting, and I didn't have fear. It was the weirdest thing. Like, because every time I would think about it, I'd get like anxiety, like, how am I gonna do it? I wanna do it, but how? But for the first time that night in the car, I was just like, I should do this. Like, and I didn't have fear that at that moment. It came back later. But I didn't have it at that moment, and that's the moment I knew that I needed to do it. So that night we went home, we ran the numbers, went over some things again, and I quit about a month after that.
Wow.
But so it was a combination, you know, I don't know how spiritual you guys are, but a combination of like praying and like having faith and believing, and then also putting the numbers down on paper and being a little bit strategic with it too. You know, I don't know how people just quit, especially in New York, you know.
That's tough.
Yeah, I don't know how people just leave their job, but that little bit of like planning was helpful. So.
You good?
Yeah. I just thinking about doing that is just scaring me.
Yeah.
It's just like you always think about, I'm going to open my own restaurant one day, and then you think about actually just quitting your job, no steady income.
Yeah.
The restaurant's failure is your failure.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things. I mean, for me, I was selling jam before I quit. You know, I didn't just quit and then like start coming up with recipes. Like, I had recipes. I was selling jam on Etsy. I had done a few like craft fairs. So I was getting income but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Something was coming in, so I just had to make it more. But like it's not like I quit with nothing. So I think that was a big part of it. But yeah.
When you were trying to kind of you're in the jam business, was there kind of like a network of kind of like-minded entrepreneurs that you were able to kind of converse with, kind of share details, talk about kind of
Yeah.
your similar struggles with?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is that there's so many small business and large business entrepreneurs who like will talk to you, who might be friends of yours now, and you don't even look at them like that. You're like, think about a friend you might have. You're like, oh yeah, so and so does own that. Like, but you don't look at them as an entrepreneur because maybe they've been doing it forever, or it's a bigger business, so you don't look at it like that. But when you kind of open yourself up to it, you'll realize how many people are probably right in your network that you can reach out to. I have a ton of friends. I don't even know where they came from. These are like, I have all these friends that are entrepreneurs. So I really have a good network, and a lot of them are willing to talk to you and like sit down and
I jump in.
Oh, please go for
How
it.
do you promote yourself outside of Facebook? And then, like, where are you? Where can we find you now?
find the product.
Yeah.
So obviously on our website we sell our jam, and then we're always at like different markets around the city. So we do a lot of pop-ups like craft fairs and things like that. We do some bigger events where we'll travel. We'll go to like DC or Boston. I think we're gonna go to Chicago this winter and do like a holiday fair. But on our site there's an events tab, and so it's always kind of like a lot of our customers who like to come in person and buy. They can find us on there. But social is everything. That's where we promote. I mean. I spend so much time on Instagram. It's literally it's sickening, and I'll get in little like bouts where I can't deal, and I just have to like turn off the phone. Or I heard someone say delete the app off your phone for the weekend. Like she'll delete it off for the weekend and then add it back on during the week. I don't know if you guys are like me, but you can get obsessed with Instagram and just like get in this spiral where for like hours. Or you guys ever like get on it and then you put your phone down and then like seconds later you pick it back up and you're like.
Yep.
What? Like I watched my husband do that like 4 times in like 5 minutes one time, and he just like put it down and then like picked it back up, and I was like, we're so obsessed, and it can be a lot. But I keep my Instagram mainly for work. I'm not gonna say I don't look at anything at all, but it's highly curated. Like I had to go through and erase a lot of things. I don't follow a lot of friends. Because I don't want to see them owning houses and having children and like creating a family. I mean, call it what it is, but like for me, it's creating negative energy because I'm like I'm not selling enough jam to buy a house right now, and so I don't want to see that. Like if I want to know what my friends are doing, I'll pick up the phone and call them. But like also you have to remember that people post only what they want you to see, and so like they're gonna post their brand new house, but they're not posting their $100,000 in debt. You know what I mean? And so like that's not worth it to me to have a house to be in a whole bunch of debt. So it's just super curated. You know, it's not a ton of things I don't want to see. It's a lot of food. A lot of really beautiful food pictures, things that kind of, there's a lot of puppies. Seriously, this stuff I'm like, oh my God, stuff that puts me in this really like good space versus like things that are, like I like the Kardashians. I don't know why, but I like them, but like I want to be a Kardashian and I will never be. So I don't follow them. I can't look at billionaires flying in jets and like think that that's real life. Like that's not my path. So it's just really, that's a random like note, but it's just very curated to try to like keep my vibe and my happiness.
I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, if someone's like sharing aspects of their life, no one's gonna share, you know, the nitty gritty.
Well, but I do. I share a lot of that, and like I think it's kind of like, you know, with the jam every day, I'm like, I don't know if I should be doing this. This is what God wants for me to do this jam business. But like, there's certain things that make me feel like I'm like really walking my purpose. And when I share and help people, the outpouring that I get from that is so huge that I'm like, this is bigger than me. And so like doing like this, you know, maybe this affects you guys, maybe it doesn't. But like sometimes I'll speak and someone will be like, you changed my life. And I'm like, by doing what? But like if
Never
that
know.
helps, but if that helps somebody, then like now I feel like that's my purpose. And so for me, I share so much because when I was trying to quit my job and I said, how do you make $3,000 a month? And they said, just hustle. And I was like, you
Rise
know?
and grind.
Right. So when people ask me, I'm like, okay, I need $3,000 a month. Like, so this amount comes from jam sales, and then this amount comes from like speaking engagements, whatever. This amount comes from this, like these different little pieces to try to build it. I share my bank account and show that it was like negative. Someone, literally, my husband laughed at me. Someone wrote back and was like, "What happened, sis? Fraud?" And I was like,
Oh, this is real life.
I was so annoyed by that. I was like, he was cracking up when I told him that. I was like, it's not that funny, but it was embarrassing because I was like, no, that's not why I posted about fraud. Like this, it's called entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's up
very
and down. Some weeks I have, you know, this year in January I got my biggest order to date, and it was like $50,000 order, and I was like, I'm rich, you know. I wasn't, but I was like, that helps me. Like my sales goals were like 150K for the year, which is nothing, but that was my personal goal. So to get 50 in January, or you know, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
like it felt really, really great, and it taught me a lot, the project management piece of it, and so it was a big deal.
So, as a smaller business, when you're collaborating or kind of in the room with larger businesses and retailers, what type of numbers or what type of outlook are they looking for you to bring to the table?
Yeah, like trying to get into some stores or something like that.
Yeah.
They'll probably look for a sell sheet, what's called a sell sheet, if you guys have seen that before. It'll just have like a picture of your product, all the different flavors, like the SKUs that you have, maybe the size, the flavor profiles, like the actual kind of ins and outs of your product. That's like a one-sheeter. You'll definitely need like a wholesale pricing for your items, because people want to know how to buy it in bulk, like not just your retail price. Probably something about your story. You know, I've learned over time that like your story is a big, big part of it. A lot of people buy into you just if they like you or they like kind of resonate with your story. So I think that's a big part of it. Like look at Tom's, you know, they like give a free shoes to like needy kids in Africa. How can you not get behind that?
Yeah.
Like but seriously,
Yeah.
the shoes are so basic. I mean, there's nothing more basic than like the original Tom. It's cool. I liked it when it came out, but like it's still the most basic shoe ever. And like, but they had this story behind it that people, you know, so even if you don't have a community piece, it could be anything. Maybe you grew up like poor or something. I didn't grow up poor, but I still have a story. Like, you know, I still have a reason why I'm like kind of doing this. So yeah.
Sure, especially as a small business, having authenticity, I
Yeah.
think a lot of times is your connection to the consumers, because you can go down the street and buy a jam, but if I know you and I know your
Yeah.
story and like I've heard you talk and I see your jam on the aisle and be like, oh, I
Yeah.
know, let me grab that. I know
think
her.
that's a big part of why
Yeah.
people buy our product, and that's why I share so much on Instagram, because you know it's not for everybody, but like some people will be like, oh, she's black, I'm an entrepreneur, she's an entrepreneur, I'm a woman, like I get it. Like people kind of resonate with these different pieces. So I think people, you know, or people like the Vice thing was great for us, and so many people bought just because they saw us on TV and they like something we said on there made them like energized to start their business or feel some type of compassion or whatever. And so a lot of people buy because of that. So that's why I share and I try to be as authentic as possible. I mean, there's nothing, you're never going to go wrong being authentic in your brand. I feel like even at the end of the day, if your brand doesn't succeed, like I don't care, as long as I say like I did what, like I'm never going to sell my soul or like do something I don't feel like, you know, passionate about or agree with just to like get in some, no, that's just not me. And yeah. And one thing I meant to say earlier, I forgot this, but you said that you had so much fear about like quitting and all this stuff. And one thing that resonated with me was like, you can always go back to work. And every time someone said that, I was like, oh yeah, you have a degree, like you have 15 years of cooking experience. Like, yes, honey, you can go back to work. You know what I mean? But that always kind of did it for me. Where it was like, okay. And I don't know why I keep forgetting that, but every time someone says that, it's like it's new again. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I can go back to work. Like I would never go back to my old company because I have too much pride for that. Like, well, because they were like, she's quitting. That's so cool. Like some of my employees were like, she's quitting to do her own thing. Like we'll see. You know, like yeah, they've been there working there like 30 years, and they're just like, oh, good luck. Like you know, so I have too much pride to like go back because they think I'm like doing great. Like if I look great, they think I'm doing great. So, but no, but I can go back to work somewhere. And so I think that just always remember that. Like, you know, we gave ourselves a year. Like that was the numbers we put on the spreadsheet. It's like you have enough income between you and your husband and like my savings and stuff from years of working, like, and with my 401k and everything all in, you have 1 year to make $0. And
To break even, yeah.
yeah, you have, if you make no money for 1 year, we can survive off of everything we have. At the end of that year, we'll have nothing, but like that's what we'll be. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna make no money in that time, so like that was kind of the time frame. So I quit in September of 2018. So I'm coming up on a year.
Anniversary.
Yeah.
Hey.
And yeah, thank you. And I have no money, so it was pretty accurate. I mean, our numbers were pretty spot on, which I'm actually proud of, that we were good enough to be able to like predict it like that. But yeah, it's so up and down. It's so up and down. Some weeks I have money, and some weeks I have nothing.
Life
But
of an entrepreneur.
yeah, but I'm happy though. I will tell you that. I'm happy. Like,
we were talking a bit earlier about what is your metric
yeah.
of how are you evaluating success?
Yeah.
And you said, not just looking at the money, but just looking at your happiness.
Yeah.
Are you happier now than you were?
I'm way happier now. I mean, and work-life balance is so important to me. It was something I never had ever before. And so just literally the fact that I can wake up at whatever time. I mean, I still get up early. I have stuff to do. But, like, if I want to sleep in or I'm sick and I just feel like laying in bed, I can. Like, there's days where I'll take a nap. And, like, sometimes I'm like, I'm like, just if your body's telling you're tired, that's because you're tired. Take a nap. And I take like 2.5 hour naps, like 3. I feel, I take solid naps. Yeah, like it feels good after. I'm like, oh my God, it's great. But like I can do that. And when you're at work and you're just like fading and you're at the computer or whatever and you're just like, I'm done today. But like you can't do anything about it like I can now. And especially in this industry, I would only get like 5 days off and my family was always in another state. Yeah. So I could never like, I worked so many Thanksgivings and Christmases, I can't even remember, on the day where like friends and family are like posting or doing whatever, telling me what a great time they had and I'm cooking. It would make me miserable. Yeah, it was like, it's making me crazy. And I was strategically counting the days to go visit family and stuff. And now like my mom was pretty sick a couple months ago and I went for like a week. I just like stayed with her and I mean I have to worry about my order fulfillment, but like everything else I can do. It's on me though. If I don't want to fulfill my orders, I don't have to. Of course I do, but like that's the whole point is that a lot of it is on you now and I never had that freedom before. And maybe it'll get old, but right now it's still so fresh and I'm not over that part of it. So yeah.
Well, for now, I want to ask anybody in the audience. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask?
Hi. Your Vice episode was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. You better know the flavors. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
When you talk about the authentic story, and especially from your Vice episode, it shows you knocking on those doors. But let's be very honest, you knock on the door as the person you are, which is a pretty smart, strong, authentic Black woman.
Thanks.
How do you deal with those challenges that come back at you? Because also being honest is, unfortunately, most of the people who have the capital to invest in you do not look like you.
That's right.
So connecting with that story, sometimes can be a little off-putting because, like, my partner is a business owner, and that's his struggle because his business is so for us.
Yeah.
He's knocking on doors.
What is his business?
It's a ballet collective.
Okay.
And he travels all across the U.S.
Okay.
But the thing about that business is literally the stories are ballet stories told in Black stories.
Yeah.
And so he's knocking on a Rockefeller brother or the Rockets for grant money, but those stories don't align with the type of things they do.
Yeah.
So I already know as you as a Black woman business owner, you either have or want to continue to have those challenges. What are some of those and how do you weave through that so you can stay in your authentic box? But at the end of the day, you sometimes just need to get that money.
Yeah, that's so heavy. That was, there's a lot there. No, there's a lot there.
Because I just know, like, that's always the challenge when you're trying to tell your story.
I mean, there's so much there. First of all, you're always going to have these challenges, right? Regardless of if you're like a minority or anything, you're going to have so many challenges. Right. So it's no different than that. But I mean, there's a few things. One, being authentic is always the way to go. It just is. Like, it's like doing the right thing in life. Like, it sounds corny, but like, how many times have you done the right thing and something good has happened? Or if like you stole something or like did the wrong thing, like it came to the light. Like being authentic is always the way to go. So even if he gets like 15, 20, a million doors closed, like one will open, but like he has to still tell that authentic story. Also, you got to do it for the culture regardless. Like you got to, some stories just have to be told, and like some people don't want to hear and don't want to talk about it, but like there's certain things that just have to be said. And so I feel like regardless, he has to tell that story. There's also a ton of grants and like investors who are looking for minorities. Like, it's funny, this is so ridiculous to say, but it's a thing now to be like diverse and in business. It's just so ridiculous,
we in
right?
fashion now?
I mean, no, but like no, seriously, like
Yeah.
it's all over. You know what it is? It's just the media in which it's like it's social media, right? Because like being a diverse business owner has always been a thing, but like now you see it on social, and there's a community that you can like follow other diverse brands. So it's just more in our face now. But because of that, non-diverse investors are seeing it too. And there are a lot of them who want to be involved, like who are like, you know what, I need more diversity. I want to be involved in this. And so there's a lot of grants and grant money and stuff that's specifically for diverse people, women, black men. I mean, they're so like specific. So you just got to look for them, but the money is out there. You're always going to come across a bunch of crap, like just in life, not even just for investment. I mean, working in the industry as a black woman, like when I started working in kitchens, like they looked at me, they were like, honey, like, what are you doing here? And I had to like prove myself, and I did, but like, I was like, why do I have to do this though? But like, I had to cook people under the table for them to be like, no, we actually need her. Like, and it felt so good to hear somebody be like, Ashley's not working Friday night, but we got like a 20 top and a 10 top. Like, we need Ashley. Like, that feels so good because it's like, yeah, because I'm running this now. Like, but I was like, why did it have to get to that point? And then even as a woman, like, the things people would say, like men working in the kitchen and stuff, they would say to me, like, and at the time I didn't know, it was like, now I'd be like a part of the Me Too movement or something, but like, then I was just like, they have dirty mouths in the kitchen, like, and you know, anyways, I always had to like come across it, and so I still come across a lot of stuff like that, but like, I don't let that stuff get me down. It doesn't bother me. Like, that's my life. That's a life of like a diverse person, a minority, a black person. You know, think about what Hispanic people are going through now. Like, that's just like the norm. Like, we're used to that. So being in business is no different. I'm just going to keep knocking on those doors. But again, there's specific things for diverse people. And if you look for those, like, those are the way to go. Like, I know Shark Tank came to Brooklyn and had like a diversity tour. And I was like, I'm not doing Shark Tank, but like my friends forced me to do it. One friend was just like, you're doing it. But he was like, it's for diversity. Like, if you ever had a chance, now you have a chance because they're looking for people that look like you know? And so I would say to him, like, you know, don't fall into any of the, like, you know, you heard things like women will straighten their hair, like people with natural hair, or they'll dress a certain way. Like, I will wear this and big hair and I don't care, but that's me. And like, you have to want to buy into that. And if you don't, that's fine. But same with the story, like telling that story. Some people won't resonate with it. If it's a rich white guy, maybe he won't resonate with like someone from the hood or something that's black. But like, you still have to tell that story. So I don't know. I hope that helps. Just keep going. Look for the specific grants that they do have for diverse people, but don't limit yourself to that now. Like, keep knocking on Rockefeller doors and all things like that. I mean, we see big brands. There's big diverse brands, and you look at people like the Oprahs of the world. I mean, she's an anomaly, but not even the Oprahs, Serena Williams, or the people that are like great at something. Like, they've had to fight through it, but like, look what they're doing. So you got to keep fighting through that.
Anybody else? Well, let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. I know I talked your ear off, but I'm trying to.